Hi everybody, welcome to today's session. I'm your host Lauren. I'm just going to give a few moments whilst I wait for people to join. Today's session, just to let you know, is being recorded, but as I just said, I'm just going to leave it a couple of minutes just to make sure everybody's had time to join, and then we'll get started. Just run into housekeeping and all those exciting bits and bobs before we run into the real detail. I can see that the number is going up now, so I'll just leave it another minute or so, and then we will get cracked on with today's session. Brilliant. So it looks like the attendees have kind of set it off now, so we'll look at getting started and moving on to just a bit of housekeeping. So session moving on now. So as I said to those of you who didn't see when first joining, I'm going to be your host for today. My name's Lauren. I am Go for Growth's procurement assistant. So I did mention previously as well that today's session is being recorded. The recording and full slide deck from today will be sent out to all registrants. So if you do miss anything, don't worry, but if you do have any questions, you can pop those in either the chat or the Q&A function. I will be monitoring these. If you don't get a response throughout the session, don't worry too much, because we have put aside some time at the end of today's session to run over any questions that there may be. So if you would like to say hello and introduce yourselves, you can use the chat function. This is also welcomed introducing yourself to each other. You are more than welcome to have a chat with other attendees in the chat function. You can choose in the settings whether you are sending to all participants or just the host of today's session. So on to introductions then. As I've mentioned briefly, I'm Lauren from Go for Growth and will be hosting the session. So Go for Growth is an organisation designed specifically to help providers find and secure work within the public sector. So whether that's providers who have never worked with the public sector before, or providers who have some experience but are further looking to develop their knowledge and skills. So my role within the organisation is quite broad. So I work closely with providers on a one-to-one basis. That is during like mentoring sessions, but also I develop content that is shared across our social media platforms and in events such as today's. So what we're going to be covering in today's session specifically, we're going to be, well, it's dedicated to finding opportunities, hence the name in the title, in the public sector. And to address this, we'll be looking at who the public sector are, so what they buy, and why should providers be looking to work with the public sector. So we'll be looking at where to actually find the opportunities. So the public sector use procurement portals to advertise opportunities. So we're going to be having a little bit, having a look at the portals that the public sector tend to use, and also where they may be advertised, not just able to be bid for. So finally, we are going to discuss the benefits of networking and the use of social media when it comes to working with the public sector as well. That's a little bit later on in today's session. But moving on, if we want to make a hard start, we'll start looking at who the public sector actually are. So I'm going to move forward onto my first proper slide. Public sector. So who is the public sector? What does the public sector buy? And the public sector spend goals. So the public sector is a portion of the economy that are owned and run by the government and are essentially the provider of public services in the UK. So in order to provide these services, they must be bought. And that's where you as a provider would come in. So a few examples of what the public sector buy, that could include education services, emergency services, healthcare and housing, refuse collection and social care services. That's just naming a few. So central government have a goal of actually 33% of all public sector spend to be with SMEs, or to be placed with SMEs. The goal was by the end of 22, but that goal is still running through and going forward, of course. And whilst the mandate that was set for, or the goal that was set for 2022, that may only be central government. However, the wider public sector are also committed to developing smaller organisations. So that's including non-for-profit, so voluntary third sectors, and it's also a good measure for all to work with. It's not just central government, it's a good measure for all, really. So we kind of can see this coming into play with the work that we do, Go for Growth. So we actually work with 14 public sector bodies across the UK at the moment. That's 14 public sector bodies that have partnered with us to make the public sector more accessible to the SME and BCSE community. So your small to medium enterprises, your voluntary community and social enterprises. Now it takes me on to my next slide. So you know who, sorry, not the next slide. So it takes me on to knowing who the public sector are, but how do providers access these opportunities that the public sector are actually putting out there? So you may be left wondering where to start. The majority of public sector tenders, as we covered briefly, are advertised using procurement portals. So there are many procurement portals that you will come across, and that's dependent on the organisations that you're looking to work with. Each public sector body will have their own portal. So say, for example, just using something close to home. So my local council is Barnsley Council, and they use a portal called Your Tender. So Your Tender is hosted by EU Supply, and it's the same portal actually used by 27 other councils across the Yorkshire and Humber region. Other examples of some other procurement portals may be Atomis. So anybody who has or is looking to work with the NHS. Atomis hosts the NHS Health Family Portal. There is Intend. So Intend's another procurement portal, and they host portals for many colleges and universities, so higher education public sector authorities across the UK. And then another final example would be Jagger. So Jagger hosts the Ministry of Justice portal. And as you can see there, I've already named a few. And these, if you've never worked for the public sector, if you've never seen these portals before, it's a lot to take in at once, but the message we're trying to get across there is that there's not one place to be looking for these public sector opportunities. It's getting out there, and the more you look, the more you'll find different portals, the more opportunities that you see that you're actually interested in. You'll find that you're registering for these as you explore the opportunities. Now, we are going to come back to the Your Tender that I've briefly covered on Your Tender. Briefly covered Your Tender, but what we are going to do later in today's session is actually do a demonstration of Your Tender, so you can see how the registration works and you can see how to set up notifications. That is just one procurement portal that we will be covering on today's session. We will also be doing a quick run through of Government Portal Contracts Finder, which again I'll discuss in a little bit more detail later on in today's session. But if you do come across any portals that we haven't covered in today's session that you want to know a bit more about, you can reach out to us and contact us. Our contact details are going to be provided later in today's session. You can pop them in the chat and Q&A function, let us know what kind of things you're wanting to see. But Go for Growth do also have a YouTube channel where we have covered a lot of registrations for public sector portals. So I'm going to move on to my next slide. So we've started covering procurement portals and some examples of procurement portals. The next one that I said is the government hosted portals. So Contracts Finder. Contracts Finder is a government hosted portal. Don't know how many of you attending today's session have seen or heard of Contracts Finder, but we're going to tell you a bit more about that now anyway. So they are used, so government hosted portals are used only to advertise an opportunity. The procurement portals that we spoke about briefly just then, or a bit more detail just then, are there to actually submit a bid for. So you'll use those procurement portals to manage your bid, download and access tender documents, ask any clarification questions, so questions relating to the opportunity. That's how you'll do so using those exact portals, which are linked to the specific public authority. Whereas your government hosted portals are there just to advertise opportunities. And Contracts Finder, and there is also Find a Tender. These were introduced when Britain left the EU, and these two portals took over OJEU. So I don't know how many of you will have used OJEU when we were still a member of the European Union, but those have now replaced. So Contracts Finder and Find a Tender have replaced that. So going into a bit more detail regarding the two government hosted portals then. So Contracts Finder is the portal used to advertise the majority of opportunities. So that's usually any opportunity worth over £10,000 or above. And it is actually a requirement for central government it's mandatory that they do advertise any opportunity worth over £10,000 on Contracts Finder. The other one that we mentioned, Find a Tender, is the portal used to advertise opportunities over 118,000 and above. Now, the opportunities that are 118,000 or above may also be advertised on Contracts Finder. What I am quickly going to do is show you through Contracts Finder, because the majority of opportunities will be on there, even if they are above the 118,000. We've decided just to do the quick demonstration on Contracts Finder, as they are quite similar in how they are run anyway. So as you should be able to see on my screen now, this is Contracts Finder. So you can explore Contracts Finder in a number of ways. So you can search Contracts Finder using keywords. As you'll see when I've selected that, you'll see some of the searches that I've inputted in there previously. So we help SMEs, we help SME growth, business growth, SME development. So that may be they may be some of the keywords that I would use if I was looking for a tender opportunity specifically for Go for Growth. So using a keyword is not the only way you can search for opportunities using Contracts Finder. You can search by location. So you can select whether you want in all locations, which will show all opportunities across the UK, within the UK. You can search regionally. So say, for example, if I was wanting to stay local to where I'm living, I would select Yorkshire and the Humber. You can also search by your postcode. So if I was going to search within my home address or my business, my organisation address is where you'd normally be searching from, I'd input my postcode in here, and you can then select how far you're happy to be searching within. Final thing that you can filter on Contracts Finder is the stage of the procurement. So whether it's an early engagement opportunity, whether it's a future opportunity, or whether it's an active opportunity. The only one of these that I usually tend to leave unticked is the awarded contract. So these are contracts that have been and gone. Unfortunately, you have missed the opportunity if it has been awarded. The only reason that you may be searching that is to find out who it's gone to. So what I am going to do is I am just going to do a search with absolutely no filters on there. Now, you will note that when you do search with no filters on Contracts Finder, there is on average, oh, that's helpful. Let me just go back to the home page. When you do a search on Contracts Finder, usually there is on average around 2,500 opportunities within the UK at any one given time. Now, the majority of those opportunities won't be relevant to your organisation. Now, this is why we run sessions similar to today to show you how to navigate the portal, to try and save yourself a little bit of time in this search process, because a lot of, especially smaller organisations, don't have the resources to be dedicating a certain amount of time each week or each day to finding new opportunities. So what we try and do is whittle down the time that it's going to take you to find the opportunities. So as we said, using keywords, if it was me looking on Contracts Finder today, and there was 2,500 opportunities, I could pop in SME growth as my keywords. I could do a search, update the results, and you'll see now the opportunities have been whittled down to 63 notices. That is, again, across the UK. So if I'm happy to go far and wide, that's 63 opportunities that may be relevant to my organisation. But there are other ways to actually filter down the opportunities even further. As we said, you can change the type of notice and you can change the location of the contract. As you can see, there's some more filters down here. So the value of the contract, the notice sector, the status, so whether it's an open or closed opportunity. And you will also see industry CPV code. So industry CPV code is another, I think, must when searching opportunities via Contracts Finder. And when you are using procurement portals, you will also usually notice that procurement portals may ask you to filter by CPV code. Now, if you're not familiar with a CPV code, this stands for Common Procurement Vocabulary, and it's a way to classify contracts, the type of contract in a standardised way, so based on really the service that you offer. And I kind of see CPV codes like a CPV code tree, and the specific branch actually branches off much deeper into much smaller branches. And what I mean by that is when you see the types of CPV codes, so I'm just going to browse CPV codes. As you can see, so 03 is agricultural, farming, fishing, forestry and related products. But this is it's still quite a vast type of thing that you're looking at. There'll be many, many opportunities that may relate to this type of service. So what you'll see is the plus point. This branches the opportunity even further. So if you're not just wanting to go as vague as agricultural, farming, fishing, forestry and related products, you can unselect that. And if you are if the service that you provide relates more to forestry and logging products, you'd select the plus point here. And again, you don't have to just select the forestry and logging. You can go even further. You can select wood, but again, even further. And I hope this is helping you get an idea of how you can get very specific with the type of service that you offer. And if I was going to be offering a service just for tropical wood, I mean, it may be because it is very niche. See if there is any notices. Let me see. 8 notices, but 8 notices out of 2,509. 8 notices, it's whittled down the amount of time that you'd be spending looking for that specific opportunity by quite a vast amount, I would say, because it would take a hell of a long time to scroll through 2,509 opportunities in comparison to 8 notices. So that's my brief demonstration on Contracts Finder. Then I'm just going to get back to the slide deck. If you do have any questions on navigating Contracts Finder as well, you are more than welcome to pop those in the chat, or again, use the contact details that we'll provide in later on in today's slide to cover any questions that you do have. Just bear with me a moment. So as we did say earlier on today, Go for Growth do have video tutorials covering various portals. We do have a video doing the demonstration that I've just covered. We do have that on our YouTube channel. So viewers or attendees from today's session, if you wanted to share this with any colleagues, or if you just wanting to relate back to it at a later date. As I said, the recording from today's session will be sent out. If you want a quick clip, it is on our YouTube channel. Also, we have covered many of the procurement portals that we did mention earlier in today's session. There are registration guides for more than just the portals that we used as examples today. But if there are any portals that you come across that we've not covered, please do make us aware, and we will make those videos for you. The service that Go for Growth providers tell us what they need, and we provide the service. We help. So if there's something that you're needing, let us know, and we can create the content, or we can create something specific to your needs to help you out. So we have pretty much covered what I want to cover in these slides. So the portals and examples, government hosted portals, and a quick guide of how to navigate Contracts Finder. What we are going to go back to now then quickly is the Your Tender demonstration. So I'm going to briefly show the Your Tender registration demonstration, and then I'm also going to demonstrate how to set up notifications for opportunities coming through. This is one thing that you can do on Your Tender, but I am aware that you can't do on all procurement portals, and it's setting up notifications to come through as an email to make you aware of when an opportunity based on a certain CPV code is available. You will be notified, so it saves you time in having to go out there and look for the opportunities manually. So again, I will move back to Your Tender and the supplier registration. So if you are familiar with Your Tender, you will have seen this homepage before. If you've seen it but you've not yet registered, this is how you will get registered. So you'll select new supplier registration. This will open a new tab. I have already got my tabs open in preparation, as I have pre-populated my answers just to make today's session a little bit easier. But what you will be able to see on here is the requests that you'll be given, and the type of information that you're asked or requested to give when registering for a procurement portal. The information does tend to be quite similar across the portals, but there may or may not be certain requirements that do differ. Certain dependent on which organisation or authority it is that you'd be looking to work for. Certain authorities are more lenient with the information that you provide, basically. So top to bottom here then. So any request for information marked with a red asterisk would be mandatory information, so you won't be able to register your organisation without providing this. So the type of organisation, so you'll select from the drop-down box the one relevant to your organisation, of course. Your company trading name. You will also see these little question mark icons. If you select those icons, it'll give you a bit more information regarding the information that you're being asked to provide. So please enter the legal registered name of the company. So I've not actually inputted the correct legal name for our organisation, so we'll Go for Growth Support Services Limited. But just for the purposes of today's demonstration, Go for Growth. So your organisation or VAT number. So you will know when you hover over this question mark. So if you think that's not relevant to me, I don't have one of those, don't panic. try and read more into the information. So selecting the question mark icon, if not applicable, type NA, which is what I've done for the purposes of this demonstration. So a Duns code, so your Duns is your Dun and Bradstreet number. You may or may not have one of these, but that is why it's not marked with the red asterisk, because not everybody will have one. It's 9 digits long, but just tell you in the description if you needed more information, if you are doing this in your own time and you've forgotten what we've covered in today's session. You'll confirm whether you are an SME, so a small medium enterprise. You'll be asked to provide the address, which is the organisation address, so the registered address for the organisation, not you personally. So you'll be asked to give a description of the business that you are registering. So as much or as little information in this box as you would like to provide. If you were to put something simple like what I have up to now, business support, that would be completely fine. So next off then, company contact information. This is, as you can see when you hover over the question, so it's the main business contact for the company. So this is the person that's going to be managing tenders, just the best person to contact within your organisation, and I would link it probably to the tender opportunities, who deals with those or who would be happy to be contacted about them. So you'd need the name of the point of contact, you'd need a contact number, and you would need to provide an email address. You can send a test email throughout this just to make sure that you've got the information correct. If you're inputting somebody else's information, send a test email and ask them if they've received it. Simple stuff. Next off then, administrator information. So if you are going to be using the same details of what you have just inputted above, simply select copy from above. If it's going to be somebody else within the organisation, again, you're required to provide first name, last name, their role within the organisation, contact number, an email address, and their preferred language. And then last thing, before you can look at submitting your registration, you will need to provide a username, a password, and you will need to confirm the password. You can then add an email address for alerts. What I will say at this point in time is if you're registering, you know that you want alerts to be sent through to your email address, but you're thinking, oh, I don't know whether Sue or James would also need to receive emails. You can add these at a later date. You can set up alerts for other people at a later date. So don't worry if you don't have the information to hand, or if it's just you for now, if you're wanting to get through it and come back to this at a later time, that is absolutely possible. So finally then, before you do submit the registration, you will have to read and agree to the terms and conditions and the privacy notice. You'll confirm that you have read the terms and you do accept them by selecting the little blue tick there. Once you've provided all the information, I quickly usually go back just to the top, read through the information that I've provided before selecting save, which will submit your registration. And as long as you've provided all of the required information, you should then be redirected to see the screen that is on my page now. So your registration is completed, and you can select the blue link, which will take you back to the login page, which we saw at the beginning of the demonstration. So I'm going to skip back to that home page now so I can demonstrate how you would set up notifications once you have registered for your tender. I'm also quickly going to show how to search for an opportunity as well, just because we're good for time at the moment. So I'm going to log in to my profile. Now, to look at setting up tender alerts, we would come to the left-hand side of the home page. We'd scroll down to where you see Manage CTM Tender Alerts. You'll select the blue link, which will move you on to this page where you can see status of CTM tender alerts. So this is the status of your notifications, whether you have them on or off. You can see currently that my tender alerts are switched off. So I'm going to move those over, switch those tender alerts on. But at the moment, what would you be getting tender alerts for? Nothing. I've not selected the type of, I've not selected a CPV code. So your tender doesn't know the type of service that I provide to be able to provide me notifications for those specific opportunities. As I mentioned earlier today, alerts that you're going to be receiving, I only provided information for my email address, so lauren@goforgrowth.co.uk. But like we said, Sue or James, if they now want the notifications to come through as well, you can add those emails there. Moving on to the CPV codes then, so to be able to specify the the certain type of service that you offer or the certain type of service that you're interested in being made aware of opportunities for, you'll select add CPV codes. And I do hope you can see the pop-up now. Let me just check. I don't need to share that separately. There we go. So you can search by category name, or you can use the CPV code tree, as I like to call it, scrolling down here. And again, you can specify as in depth or as in detail as you would like. So I'm going to say for the purposes of today that I am looking for blankets and travelling rugs service opportunities or product opportunities. Once you are happy with the CPV codes, doesn't look like that's added, bear with me a second. And selected categories. Okay, so we've gone for agricultural, farming, fishing, forestry and related products. So once you can see that in the CPV codes box and you're happy with the information that you've changed, checking that the email addresses, if you have added any email addresses, have gone on correctly, you'll then select done. That will bring you to the next page, which again gives you a rundown at the bottom. The services that you have changed. Done again, selecting done that final time will save the information that you've just changed and take you back to the home page. If you went back to the managed CTM tender alerts now, you would see that those CPV codes have been added. Any email address that you've added, changed, removed would also have been saved. And quickly then, I'm going to show how to search for an opportunity. So again, back to the services column on the left-hand side, with this time go down to CTM published tenders. This will redirect you to the ongoing public tenders page. So here you can navigate tenders that are currently out there, so tenders that are ready to bid for. It may be that there are opportunities that are on there. Oh, I say an opportunity, it may be market engagement that's been added by your local authority to try and get some interest, because if you as an organisation have got your notifications set up for a specific service, so say for example the agricultural forestry farming, if you've got that notification set on but you're not aware of the upcoming opportunities, then there is a market engagement event going, your local authority may have just uploaded that to make sure that more people are likely to see it. So you can navigate this page. I'm just going to quickly move. So you can navigate this page using the, so whether it's an awarded tender, whether it's an issued tender. Again, it doesn't make too much difference on here because you're only looking for the current ones, or I would normally only be looking for current. So you can select whether it's all opportunities or just local opportunities. You can decide whether you're searching by reference, quote or tender ID. You can search by keywords. You can search for specific dates, so dates that the tenders are available from and to. And you can specify whether you're wanting to search expired quotes or just active ones. You can add CPV codes, which is something we would normally do, unless you are looking for a specific opportunity, with a specific contracting authority. This is where we would use more options. So selecting the more options drop down will give you the option to search between countries, processors and buyers. And if I'm honest, this is normally how I search for an opportunity. So if I'm looking to target a specific public sector authority, if I'm looking for my local council, I'm looking for Barnsley Metropolitan Borough Council, I will press search and you'll see currently there is all of these opportunities. There are actually 8 pages worth of opportunities, but when I update the search based only on Barnsley Council opportunities, you'll see that whittles it down to 1 page, and I believe so it doesn't say specifically how many opportunities are on there, but you'll see the number is much less than it was before. So if I'm wanting to target only Barnsley Council, I'm able to do so by selecting just that specific buyer. So once you've found an opportunity, reading through these that is of interest to yourself. So say, for example, I was interested in the Support to Live at Home framework. I would select the blue link here. You can read over the information in a bit more detail. If again, the opportunity is something that you are in, that is of interest to yourself, to express interest. So there's different ways of what an authority will call this. So expressing interest, accepting an opportunity, confirming interest. It's all a way to say that yes, I'm interested in this opportunity. I want to bid for this opportunity. Let me see the tender documents, that kind of thing. So for your tender, you would choose accept. Selecting accept will refresh the page and you are now able to manage the bid process. To firstly access the documents, you'll select the access documents. This will again open a fresh page. These are all of the tender documents for that Support to Live at Home framework. You can download all of these, or you can download the ones that are relevant to your organisation, the ones that you're interested in reading over, but it is of course smart to read through everything just to make sure you're not missing any important information out of any of those. So that was a very brief example of how to register, how to set up notifications, and how to find an opportunity using your tender specifically. So as I said earlier in today's session, it will differ between each procurement portal. The requested information and the way that they work are usually quite similar, but there will be differences. And if there is anything that does catch you out, if there's anything that you're not sure of, that's one thing that Go for Growth are here to help you with. Just let us know what you need and we'll find a solution. Also, don't forget to check our YouTube channels for the guides that we do have on there currently. But if you'd like to see any others in particular, as I said, please do let us know. Just a second. Okay, so now we've covered then the procurement portals, examples of the procurement portals, and a quick demonstration of two of the portals, so the government hosted portal and a specific public sector authority portal. We're now going to move on to the next slide, which we're going to be looking a little bit about engagement. So some networking events, social media, these are all the ways that providers may be able to get involved with the public sector, the opportunities that are out there, engaging and figuring out how to navigate the public sector. So although procurement portals are used to advertise actual opportunities, it's not the only way to stay in the loop, is what we're trying to say, with upcoming opportunities, with market engagement, just with the public sector in general. So the first thing that we're going to look into then is networking events. So networking is a great way not only to stay in the loop with opportunities, but to be able to make yourself known to the authorities as well. So get involved in conversations that they're having and show them from a distance how your organisation's values align with those of theirs. So if you're looking for a smaller opportunity, it may be that the smaller opportunities don't go out on these larger procurement portals. You may be invited to submit a bid, but if you're not making yourself, if you're not putting yourself out there to the public sector, to these contracting authorities, if they don't realise that you're out there, you may miss out on an opportunity that doesn't go through the full big tender process, because there are smaller tenders where, as I said briefly just a moment ago, that you'll be invited to submit a bid or provide a quote. So I do believe, yeah, it's definitely important to be able to get yourself out there, make yourself known, have conversations with the public sector and let them know, like I said, how your values align with those of theirs. So networking events, they aren't only useful for the reasons that we've discussed, but events are also another way that the public sector may advertise opportunities. So for example, at Meet the Buyer events. So Meet the Buyer events are a form of networking event. The authority will host these to promote upcoming opportunities by inviting providers that are interested in a certain opportunity to come along. So at these events, providers can ask questions about the opportunity, they can become more familiar with the opportunity itself, as well as having the chance to meet the contracting authority. So they're usually hosted by the opportunity on a portal. So as we said earlier today when we were doing your tender demonstration, what a public sector authority may do is advertise the market engagement event. And when I said the market engagement event, that could be a Meet the Buyer event. And as I just said, the Meet the Buyer events are a chance to ask any questions, familiarise yourself with the opportunity, also ask questions about any upcoming opportunities later down the line. They can also be, networking events can also be a great way to meet other organisations similar to yourself. So whether it's going to be, if you're attending an event for a niche type of service, so a construction event, say, for example, it may be a great way for you or organisation to meet other smaller organisations or other larger organisations who you may find can help you, or you can help them later down the line when it comes to, say, for example, collaborations, partnerships. If you want to go and bid for a piece of work together, actually finding the companies that you are able to go forward and work with can sometimes be a bit of a task in itself. But attending networking events such as a Meet the Buyer event is a great opportunity to meet like-minded individuals interested in working with the public sector. The fact that you're both at that organisation to start with tells you both that you're both interested, one, in working with the public sector. If it's a niche service, if it's a construction event, you're both providing a similar type of service, surely. It gives you a chance to get out there and network overall. So moving on this, so that pretty much covers what I wanted to say about networking events. We just wanted to get the message across there that networking is a fantastic tool, not only for the public sector to get to know you, for you to get to know the public sector, but also use it to your advantage, getting to know other like-minded organisations, whether that's in your area, whether it's regionally, or whether it is across the UK. But next then, social media. So when the public sector are actually starting to see more the benefits of social media, so the benefits that platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter can have. So they're actually a great way for organisations to speak about their values and the things that are important to them. So when I said attending the market engagement events can be a great way for you to get out there and find out more about what the public sector authority that you're interested in working with, what their values are and how you can align with them. Social media can be a great way for you to better understand that as well. The things that the organisation, or sorry, the authority are posting about, you can see whether that's something that you align with. Is it something that you're passionate about? Get in touch with them, contact them, get into a discussion with them on these platforms. It's a great thing to be doing. But it's also a great way for your target audience to see you, of course. Give me a second. Now, what Go for Growth are actually working on, the organisations that we work alongside, we're actually having conversations with them also about the benefits of social media. So it's not just a benefit for you as a provider to be getting in contact, so to be following, to be conversing with people on social media about the public sector opportunities that are out there, but also, as I said, so Barnsley Council, the things that they're posted about on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, we get involved in, we get our conversations out there, but also we're having conversations with the public sector directly about how they can utilise social media better as well. So say, for example, at the moment, public sector tender opportunities are usually only advertised on those public sector on the public sector procurement portals, so Contracts Finder, Find a Tender, and the individual contracting authorities procurement portal. So the Your Tender that we've just seen, the Atomis, the Jagger, Delta Resourcing, that kind of thing, they'll be advertised all over there and it'll be promoted very well within the organisation. However, outside of there, smaller organisations may not know where to look to start off, and that may be why organisations are attending events such as today, because they don't know where to start looking for tender opportunities. So we are working on getting the message out there more that social media can be used to advertise the opportunities better going forward. It is something that we are seeing more and more. Say, for example, last year Go for Growth worked quite closely with North Yorkshire County Council, and the event was so well publicised across LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, not only on Go for Growth's personal social media pages, but also through North Yorkshire's. It's a big thing, but it is something we are working on. So do keep your eye out. As I said, interact with your local authorities' social media pages, keep your eye out, and hopefully that will be something that's worked on and improved in the very near future. It does, again, so this last slide was a kind of brief one, but we just wanted to discuss and cover the benefits that social media and networking can have. Again, I can see a question that has gone in there now, but we are very close to the end, so I'm just going to cover up on this sheet this slide and move on to the Q&A session. So I'll come to that question for you now. Bear with me just a second. So how do I find networking events? So me personally, I think the way that I feel about networking events, has been covered in today's session. So I feel like they're a great way to meet not only the authority that I'm interested in working with or currently working with, but it's also a great way for me to get out there and find like-minded individuals. Because if you're, say for example, you're attending an event because you're struggling with something, networking events usually give you a chance to ask questions. Like being able to ask questions in today's session, there will usually always be a Q&A or a poll or a feedback session at the end of the networking event. Gives you a chance to ask the public sector authority that is hosting the event any questions, whether it's specifically about the event, and normally it should be relating to the opportunity or the specific event. But if you have a burning question, say for example, you're really wanting public sector opportunities to be advertised on social media, as we have just briefly discussed, you could say you could ask the question whilst you're there, is Barnsley Council thinking of advertising their opportunities across social media going forward? Because that would really help me. I think it's a great opportunity to take advantage of. Make the most of them. I think you get what you give, that kind of thing, when it comes to a networking event. If you go and you sit in the corner and you're not really engaged, you may not get as much out of it. If you go, ask the burning questions, get talking with other people, get talking with the contracting authority, I think you can get a lot out of them, definitely. So next question then, so do you have any tips on where to find networking events? So absolutely, yes. So I think one thing that social media is being utilised very well for at the moment is networking events, but also so having a look on LinkedIn. Like I said, if you're engaging with your public sector authority, so I am assuming that we're only looking local for this example, but also NHS Health Trust or your local police constabulary, if you're following Blue Light Commercial. So Blue Light Commercial procure for a lot of policing authorities, especially in Yorkshire at the moment. If you're following these pages on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, if there is a networking event being held, I am noticing a lot more that these are advertised across social media. I mean, not always, but a lot more than public sector tendering opportunities are at the moment. So we're getting there, we're going in the right direction, but also procurement portals. So as I mentioned when I was doing your tender demonstration, that you may be looking through opportunities and you'll see at the beginning, so how we looked at the Support to Live at Home framework, what it might say is Support to Live at Home framework, and then in brackets, market engagement event. So the opportunity is not actually live, you can't bid for the opportunity, but the market engagement is going ahead. There'll be maybe a meet the buyer event, or there'll be an event just to give providers to ask the chance to ask more questions and cover what they can expect from the opportunity when it goes live, what's going to be expected of the provider, that kind of thing. But there will also be like pipeline events. So we recently attended an event, so a Meet the Buyer event in West Yorkshire, where so there was multiple councils across West Yorkshire that attended. So there were Leeds, there was Calderdale, there was Bradford, and that gave providers from West Yorkshire the chance to see the pipeline, so upcoming opportunities in the West Yorkshire area specifically. Each council that attended the event got up at the front and spoke about their upcoming tender opportunities, and that was up to 18 months in advance tender opportunities. If you can familiarise yourself with the things that are coming up with the authorities that you're interested in working with, you can be much better prepared, because you can see when the opportunities are likely to go live, rather than seeing it as soon as that comes up and then having a bit of a panic trying to get all your documentation, putting this time aside to bid for the opportunity. If you're aware of the upcoming opportunities yourself, it makes it easier for you to find the market engagement and the networking events that are coming up based on those opportunities in particular. Hope that helps. So next question then. So do you have any tips on good ways to open an online conversation over social media? So anything that should be avoided from a procurement perspective. So I wouldn't say so, no. So what I would say is if you see something that a local authority is posting something about, they're very passionate about this, it gives you, or it gives me, an indication that that's something that they would want to see their providers doing as well. So social value is a big thing at the moment, and it's actually expected from providers that are going to be working with the public sector to be able to demonstrate social value. So if you can, if you're going online and posting and conversing with the local authority about social value and what you do at the minute and how you are doing great things based around social value, they're great ways to open a conversation. What I would say is to avoid, I think this is all ridiculous and I don't understand why you need this from a provider. It's not giving any benefit to the authority, and it's not a benefit to yourself either, if that makes sense. But I would just say, so in interacting to show how your values align is what I said earlier. So if you can demonstrate how you have the same interests and values as the authority that you are conversing with, get out there and get that message across. Let them know. So if you've recently attended an event that they've hosted, or you're ready to attend an event that they've hosted, let them know. Really looking forward to seeing you guys on the 28th at the construction event, that kind of thing. It doesn't have to be too much or too little. It's just getting out there and making the effort, I'd say. So that it seems that the questions have dried up now, and we have also, I was 45 minutes gone by already. That does actually bring us to the end of today's session. As I did say, so I do have contact details on the screen now. So there's my email address on there, there's my contact number on there, and there is also our Microsoft Bookings online booking calendar. So that is to book a 30-minute one-to-one team session with either myself or my colleague Jill. As I did say at the beginning of today's session, the slide deck from today will be sent out to everybody. But also do reach out with us with any questions that you do have relating to today's event. If you want to see anything in particular that we are going to be, if you want to see us create any specific content is what I'm trying to say, please do let us know. If you've got any specific questions that you didn't want to ask directly on today's session, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you in some of our other events later this year. Thanks very much.